Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakahakwadash, Barakathum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and in this video, I'll be profiling a clip from Wyon's YouTube channel titled Wyon Climate Tracker, Drought Threatens War-Scarred Iraq's National Security. And as we'll see in this clip, droughts over in Iraq are drying up the Euphrates River, which is all a part of biblical prophecy. The Euphrates River is being dried up so that these heathen nations as militaries can more easily get down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat for the Battle of the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, the main part of World War III in Joel chapter 3. But before I start this clip, this is a fair use copyright disclaimer. I do not own any of the footage in this video, nor do I stand to gain from it monetarily. It is simply for educational purposes.
Iraq's swamplands, they were once home to the biblical Garden of Eden. And now the swamplands have been battered, hit by 3 years of drought and low rainfall. This comes as Iraq deals with a crippling water crisis, one that has turned lakes into pools of muddy water. Take a look.
To feed and cool his buffaloes, Hashim Gasset must cross 10 kilometers of sunburnt land. This is the situation in southern Iraq, where a drought is devastating the mythical Mesopotamian marshes.
We are at a loss where to go. Our lives are over. We have been protesting for more than 2 years and no one is listening.
These Iraqi swamplands straddle the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. They are a rare aquatic ecosystem, especially in a country half covered in cracked desert. Legend has it they were home to biblical Garden of Eden.
And before we continue, I'm going to say that's a very loaded statement that the host of this clip said, because while it can be said that Iraq was a part of the Garden of Eden, it wasn't where Adam and Eve dwelt in the events of Genesis chapter 3 took place. And I'm going to just go into a few precepts to show that. This is Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. And this is when the Most High told Abram, or Abraham, the father of Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 tribes of Israel, of the lands they would get, that they would call their homeland, the land of Israel. In the same day, Yahweh made a covenant with Abram, saying, unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. And this is a map of the original biblical borders that the children of Israel were supposed to receive, from the great river of Egypt, the Nile River, all the way to the river Euphrates, very big landmass. And this is a map of what was known as the Fertile Crescent. And as you can see, it's pretty much the same landmass. So the Fertile Crescent was the Garden of Eden, which the Garden of Eden was the original biblical borders of the land of Israel, or what would become the land of Israel. And as you can see, Egypt, well, not Egypt, well, yeah, some of it, but Iraq was a part of it, or Mesopotamia. But like I said, Adam and Eve and the events of Genesis chapter 3 didn't take place in Mesopotamia or Iraq. Now I'm going to go to Genesis chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 8. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed, that man, of course, being Adam. And the whole planet Earth back then was known as Eden. And the word Eden means paradise or pleasure. But the garden planted eastward in Eden was again what would have been known as the Fertile Crescent. Now I'm going to jump down to verse 10. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, which is speaking of the Red Sea. That is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is bdellium and the onyx stone. The name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia. And the Gihon is referring to the Nile River, which it was named the Nile River by the Greek Edomites when they came into power, which you can further read about in the book of Josephus. But now I'm going to go back to that map of the Fertile Crescent. You have the Nile River right here in northern Africa, which goes down into eastern Africa to compass the land of Ethiopia. Then, of course, you got the Pison River, which is the Red Sea. And you've got the Red Sea right here. And what does it compass? Saudi Arabia, where Havilah was located. Verse 14, and the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is it which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And when we go to Hiddekel in the Strongs, it's H2313, Hiddekel, rapid, one of the rivers of Eden, which coursed east toward Assyria, better known as the Tigris River. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And I read all these verses just to further expound upon where it says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 10, a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into four heads. And what was that main river that these other rivers parted out into four heads from? Let's go to Ecclesiasticus or Sirach in the Apocrypha, chapter 24, verses 25 to 27. He filled all things with his wisdom, as Pison and as Tigris in the time of the new fruits. He maketh the understanding to abound like Euphrates, and as Jordan in the time of the harvest. He maketh the doctrine of knowledge appear as the light, and as Gihon in the time of vintage. So that main river that these four rivers parted out from is speaking of the Jordan River. And when we go to a map of the Jordan River, where's it at? Around the current area that people know as the land of Israel today. So if these four rivers came out of the Jordan, where would we say Adam and Eve dwelt in? Hey, that part that most people know as Israel today, most likely Jerusalem, which was the capital of the kingdom of Israel, where Solomon's temple was. And we know that we know that Yahawashi Hamashiach, whom the world ignorantly refers to as so-called Jesus Christ, was King Solomon in the reincarnation. And even deeper, Yahawashi was Adam in the reincarnation. But now let's get back to this clip.
But now these marshlands are under threat. It previously faced massive destruction at the hands of dictator Saddam Hussein. Today they are jeopardized by poor management and climate change. Around 90% of the once expansive marshes were drained, with the area's 250,000 residents dwindling down to just 30,000.
Before, when we used to come to the marshes, there was greenery, water, inner peace. But now the marshes are empty. It's like a desert. The people who live here depend on the resources found in the marshes. They cannot live in the city like those who have jobs and paychecks.
Southern Iraq's marshlands became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2016. both for their biodiversity and their ancient history. But now beds of dry streams snake around the once vibrant wetlands. Lakes have turned into puddles of muddy water. Between August 2020 and this month, 46% of the swamplands suffered water loss. This includes Huwaiza and Shibayish in southern Iraq. Another 41% of marsh areas suffered from reduced water levels. Its farmers are battling severe water shortages. Shortages are killing the animals, fields and way of life.
The effects of dehydration are very clear on the animals. The buffaloes can't walk, drink or cool themselves because of the drought. Where do they go now? They might fall in the mud and die.
As a region, West Asia is already water stressed. There was never too much water to begin with. Reports suggest there won't be much left soon, but water scarcity is already fueling tensions here. The consequences could be dire. Areas could become uninhabitable. Tensions over water sharing could rise and political violence could erupt over water. Iraq has witnessed persistent drought over the years. Sometimes temperatures are so high it could become difficult to live here soon. Add climate change to the bag and the future of water here is as grim as ever. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
On that note, it's a wrap.
Like I said at the beginning of the video, all these things are taking place to get these heathen nations' militaries ready to be gathered down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon. Now let's get back into these precepts. This is Revelation chapter 16, verse 12. And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. We clearly saw in that clip that the great river Euphrates is being dried up. This is Joel chapter 3, start at verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, the heathen Gentiles, prepare war, the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon, World War III, nuclear war, because World War III is going to go nuclear. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. And we've seen over the last few decades that many events have taken place in the Middle East to gather these heathen nations as militaries down into that region. You had the war in Iraq in 2003, which brought the U.S. military into that region. And you've still got U.S. military personnel in Iraq, some in Syria, and then you've also got some in Saudi Arabia. And you had the Syrian civil war, which brought Russia in to help Bashar al-Assad, and you've still got Russian military personnel in that region. And then just recently, you had a Israeli military drill called the Chariots of Fire, which involved all branches of their military simulating attacks against Iran and their allies. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. Ye Edomites, or so-called white people, the Moabites, or the so-called Chinese, the Ishmaelites, or the so-called Arabs, the Elamites, or the so-called East Indians, etc., and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. And those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this great destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to release it, which is mainly going to happen after the Charagma, the Markofthebeast in Revelation chapter 13, verses 16 to 18, which is the RFID/NFC MICROCHIPIMPLANT is mandatorily implemented. This is Revelation chapter 9, verses 12 to 14. One woe or destruction is past, referring to World War I. And behold, there come two woes more hereafter. World War II, which is past, and World War III, which is quickly coming. That battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, that War of Armageddon, nuclear war. And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before the Most High, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. The United States of America, Russia, China, Iran, the state of Israel, Turkey, these NATO nations, and Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, which means Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And when you go into the first couple of verses of this chapter, you'll see why the Most High is gathering these heathen nations down into the valley of Jehoshaphat to judge them for afflicting the apple of his eye, the true children of Israel, who are known as the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today. Those people over in the Holy Land right now aren't the true people of the Most High. They're Amalekite Edomites who appointed the land into their possession, which you can read about in Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 5. And when you go to Psalms chapter 83 of the heathen nations that confederated themselves against the children of Israel, you'll see that at the top of the list are the biblical Edomites. Esau, Edom is mentioned twice. It says the tabernacles of Edom and then the tabernacles of Amalek. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And when we see news information like this, we definitely know that the day of Yahweh is very near in the valley of decision. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.